Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blank Gates. Today is day number 68. We are in the final third of this amazing, spectacular, extremely interesting 101-day challenge to talk about themes that you can use to better understand your business and to improve your business. Now, we've been talking about purposes that motivate. And today's theme, we could probably entitle Why People Protest. why are people protesting? It's like in the last couple of years, all we hear is protesting, protesting, protesting. People are getting out on the street and protesting. There's a lot of civil unrest. Now, I don't want to talk about any specific protests or what is going on, but I just want to say in general that there are people protesting. And what is the motivation or purpose behind these protests? Why do people get up with the possibility of getting shot at with, depending on which country you're from, could be real bullets, could be rubber bullets, cans of tear gas, and whatever else the police are going to throw at you. And you want to make your voice heard. You have some kind of message, right? There is something that you want to change. So what is the purpose? How do we articulate it as a scientist would articulate it? So the author of the book, Create Crucial Insight, he is a physicist. And sometimes you need a physicist to be able to break things down into the elementary parts. So we've been talking about purposes. We've been talking about purposes that motivate people to come up with brilliant ideas. We've been talking about purposes for people to develop potential. We've been talking about purposes for people to develop plans around these opportunities. And then, of course, we've been talking about purposes that help people to go out and get things done. And the reason why it's so important is because as you start to choose providers, or as you start to look at different scenarios for how to do different plans, or if you're thinking about who to involve, who to bring on in your company, or how to build a team, then it's important to know what are the different parts of the project. What is the endeavor? What are you trying to do? And as you work on those things, do you have people who are sufficiently motivated? All right, so if you don't have like people who are sufficiently motivated to develop their own potential, like the thing is, it's like, if you talk about communism and capitalism, I spent the last couple of weeks really thinking about communism and capitalism and going through history and thinking about like what happened and why things happen in certain ways. And the capitalist, there's people who like capitalism, there's people who like communism, there's it just goes back and forth like a metronome. What's popular, what works, what doesn't work, what's going on, why didn't it work? And I'm not here to pick a side, but it seems as though in capitalism you have people who are working for their own benefit, right? So they have some personal potential, right? They want to develop some type of value, and then they want to be able to put that value into a marketplace. And in the marketplace, they want to be able to get money back for whatever value they're putting into the marketplace. All right, and then with communism, it seems like people they want everyone's they want everybody to work for the good of society. And there are some insects, or maybe even some animals, that have this type of mentality where everybody's working for the common good. And then together their society is able to work as a unit. So now you want to pick people. So if you're in a communist society, you want the people in your commune farm. You want them to have you want them to be motivated by a desire to develop the potential of the group. They want to enhance society as a group. And you need people who are able to plan. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter when you're going to, like, if you're talking about people who are planning for the good of society, or whether you're planning for the good of yourself, the plan is the plan, right? There's not really a big difference there. You just need a plan, and then you need people to get the end result. And like, actually, that again, it doesn't really matter here whether your motivation is personal or in a group, because the main difference of communism and capitalism begins from this idea of shaping potential. How are we going to shape potential? What is it that we're trying to build? Am I trying to create my own value? Am I trying to create a product that has some kind of value, or am I trying to create some kind of service that has value, and I can then go and sell that value, and I'm going to reap the benefit of that value personally, and then I'm going to use whatever money I got back to continue to develop that product and make an even better product, and then try to create even more value so I can go into the market and take even more capital? Or am I in a society where it doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm always going to get the same? All right, so like, say you're going to university, and like, there's some students who don't study very much, and you study all the time. Right? You put a lot of work in it because you really think, I'm interested in this topic. I really like to learn. And then the test comes. Everybody writes the test, and the guys who got the highest marks, they pull their marks down. And the guys who got the lowest marks, they raise those marks up. And then at the end of the day, everyone gets the same grade. So I'm not saying one is better than the other at this point. That's not the purpose of what I'm trying to say. But I'm just saying that the purpose that people are working toward is a little bit different. And it's possible that it could change the motivation of the group. Especially if I'm the guy who I'm trying to attain certification. All right, so if we go back to shaping potential, if I'm trying to attain certification or other recognition, like, how do I gain recognition in a communist society? Because the results of my labor go into a pool. So we don't even know it was me that did it. I mean, maybe, I suppose you do at the end of the day, but I'm not rewarded for that. So I would have to be motivated not to enhance my own reputation. Then I wouldn't really need the motivation to like, get a certification or other recognition. Basically, I would need to be motivated for the good of society, to create resources, methods, skills, knowledge. I mean, it's just like, it's so much. The thing is that if you're working in this communist society, it's almost like the purposes, what you're working toward, there aren't like a lot of purposes that you can identify. But when you're looking at this like selfish capitalist society, you get to reap the rewards of your labor. There's so many more elements of motivation that are involved. Anyways, the purpose is that eventually we are going to get to the riots. All right, so today we're talking about creating effects. Why do people show up at riots? So today's purpose is called satisfy or affect principles, standards, agendas, or goals. So once again, we have two verbs, satisfy and affect. What's the difference between satisfy and affect? And then what are we satisfying? We're satisfying principles. All right, so if you are voting, then you are satisfying a principle. If you're in a democratic country, then there's this principle of representation. So the people in the government should represent the will of the people. And by voting, you are satisfying this principle. And some people are motivated to vote because they want to satisfy this principle. Satisfy standards. All right, so for example, if you're driving at the speed limit, there's a standard for you to drive at that speed limit. And if you are a person who's motivated to satisfy standards, then you will be driving the speed limit. You will be paying your taxes. You will be doing everything you can to satisfy the standards of your society. And what about your religion? All right, so you have a religion and there are certain standards. What kind of clothes can you wear? What kind of food can you eat? How are relationships managed in your religion? You are going to act, you are motivated. If you're motivated to satisfy standards, then you will meet that expectation and religious obligation. How about satisfy agendas? All right, so, or goals, agendas and goals. So, like, this is really important. You need somebody on your team who is like really motivated to satisfy agendas and goals. That means you send him the plan. You say, hey, here's the plan, here's the goal, here's the plan. And he's like, I love plans. I love goals because like I need to get to the end. Every time I start a crossword puzzle, I fill out every single word. Every time I find a Sudoku puzzle, I got to fill in all the numbers. When I go into a corn maze, I got to get out the other side. I'm just so motivated to satisfy agendas and goals. And now for our protesters. Affect principles. All right, so why? Affect principles and standards. These people are protesting because they want to affect standards and principles. They're saying, look, this is how society views this problem. And this is how we view this problem. I am motivated to affect this standard or principle. I believe that by protesting, I will be able to let my voice be heard. People will hear that voice and it will affect the way that they think. And eventually, if we can get enough support around this standard or principle, then we can affect the standard or principle. Therefore, in the future, we will be able to set a new standard. We will be able to create a new principle. And some people are motivated by this. Some people really want to do that. All right, also affect agendas and goals. So you have some people, they just do what you tell them to do. You give them the goal, you give them the plan, and they just love it. They just eat it up. They just go and do it. Then you have another group of people who they want to affect the agendas and goals. All right, so they're like, all right, you show them the goal or the agenda, and they're like, well, you see, that's one way we can do it, but there's another way. Or, yeah, that goal, it's like pretty good. It's pretty, I think we can work towards that. But there's this other goal. So you see, today's message is that there are people who like to satisfy standards, principles, agendas, and goals. And if you're the boss and you just want it done, then you're going to need to hire somebody like this. If you have a provider and you want them to reach, you send them the plan. You say, these are the principles, these are the standards which we need you to meet as a provider, and they just meet it. There you go. Fantastic. Then you hire them because they're going to give you the service that you want. They're motivated to provide you with the service which you have asked for. Now, if you're like, well, I think we need to mix things up around here a little bit. I think we need to make some change. All right. That means you probably want to hire somebody who likes to affect agendas, affect goals, affect standards and principles. Because these are the guys who are going to come up with new ideas. They're going to say, yeah, I think it's great that we've been doing this. But look, I think we should do this. All right. Now, I don't know, it's likely, that statement alone sounds more like shaping potential, right? So it's almost like if you have a person who wants to affect agendas and goals, then that might not be the best person because you give them the plan and the goal, and then they go out and they're motivated to do something else, right? So if you trust that person and you believe in that person, then they will not follow the plan that you gave them. They will not reach the goal that you outlined. They will reach a different goal, and hopefully it's a better goal. They will not follow your plan. They will follow their own plan to get to that goal, and hopefully it's a better plan. All right, so how does that go into our discussions over the last couple of days? So as you can see, I gave you a bunch of different examples about how you can view your provider. I also gave you a bunch of ideas for what types of people to put in a variety of different positions based on what the outcomes that you're trying to get. And so eventually you're going to build some scenarios around those ideas, right? So not only do these ideas inspire, like these are the purposes that people are working towards, but these are also, like when you look at your projects, the projects themselves are going to have these purposes. The purposes that we've outlined, the products that you're building, the services that you have, they follow the same purposes. All right, so what you can actually do is you can look at your product or service and you can outline all of these different purposes. And then you can also outline the facets, the different pieces of your project. And you can then decide, does my project positively correlate to these purposes, or does it negatively correlate to these purposes, or maybe it's neutral? And if you can somehow change your project, all right, so first identify what are the facets of your project, and also identify how, which of these purposes correlate to these different facets. And there may be an opportunity for you to build some scenarios for how you can improve your services or improve your products. Probably services makes more sense, based upon how you can incorporate these purposes into your service. Maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Thank you for tuning into Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates.